23 past the hour. It's been just over 3 days since Politico published the leaked draft of a Supreme Court opinion that would overturn Roe v. Wade. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says he will force a vote to protect abortion rights in federal law next week, and it is almost certain to fail. Currently, about half of U.S. states are certain to like or likely to ban abortions if the court does overturn Roe, including 9 states that already have laws on the books criminalizing abortion, which would go into effect immediately. And that includes Michigan, where clinics say they're already seeing a surge in callers panicking about their options going forward, especially for contraception. Democrats hope all of this will send a message to voters to turn out this November. Joining us now, Michigan's Democratic Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson. Thank you very much for joining us. I know that the clinics are getting a lot of calls. Do we know how Michiganders poll on abortion rights?
Overwhelmingly in favor of the freedom to choose. I think 70% have stated their support for it. And so it really underscores that this is not a decision that reflects the will of the people. And that's exactly why we say our fundamental freedoms, our rights are on the ballot this year.
So since that's the case, what are the options on the table to try and beat back or at least retain this right for women in Michigan? If it is the will of the people, if it polls very well and women want their right to an abortion, are there any options beyond performative politics that end up failing?
Yeah, there are. There's 3 things. One, the governor has already asked the state Supreme Court to look into the constitutionality under the state constitution of the current ban on the books in Michigan. But secondly, there's an effort underway to amend our state constitution through a referendum that would be on the ballot if it qualifies this fall, to create a explicit right to choose in our constitution and our state constitution that would protect women in Michigan. And then thirdly, as has been said, it's time for citizens to vote and vote like never before, in larger numbers than ever before. We already are coming off of the highest turnout election in our state's history in 2020. I expect many will react to the fact that indeed their freedom to choose is on the ballot, and support candidates on either side of the aisle who support that choice.
Do you think this should be the Democrats' #1 message ahead of the midterms? Something as clear as this, like if you like your rights, vote Democrat? I mean, I feel that in some ways Republicans, because they take such liberty with the truth, especially on the Trump wing of the Republican Party, that it's almost not a fair fight because they'll say anything. But this is the law of the land being overturned. This is a constitutional right being taken away. And this opens the door to a lot of other rights being taken away. This seems easy to talk about.
Exactly. I've said for a while democracy is on the ballot this fall, and that's true. Voters will choose who will oversee our elections in the future, and that has ramifications for every issue we stand for. But now we're seeing truly our rights, our freedoms are on the ballot, not just our freedom and right to vote, but our freedom of choice, our right to privacy. That is all on the ballot this fall, and that is the message to voters, that you have a choice as to who you will support and who you will hold accountable this fall. And we hope that voters will recognize the power they have to reject decisions that are made that don't reflect their values. And if that happens, if we see people turn out, if we see people support candidates who stand with them supporting their freedoms, their rights, then we can see a change and we can start to expand our rights again. But make no mistake, this attack on our right to privacy, our freedom to choose, is one of a large number of attacks on rights that we've seen to trans kids, to people who are excluded and marginalized in society, and to our right to vote, which we've battled for years now. So our rights, our freedoms are on the ballot this fall.
Is this an area that perhaps Democrats will look to get Republican support? Is this in Michigan support for abortion rights? Do we have any sense of how it polls among Republican women?
It no doubt is an issue that causes some division in the Republican Party, but I think it's really a nonpartisan issue. When we're talking about standing simply for everyone to have rights over and autonomy over their body, their freedoms protected, and freedoms that they've had for decades continue to be there for them. We all can come together across party lines to just simply stand up for everyone's rights, everyone's freedom, everyone's ability for their voice to be heard, and for their ability to choose who governs them and who makes decisions that affects them. That's what democracy is about, and that's what I hope we can come together across party lines to defend this year.
Secretary Benson, in a couple of weeks, you will be awarded the JFK Profile and Courage Award on a list that includes President Zelensky of Ukraine, Liz Cheney, among others. It's pretty good company for your efforts to defend the results of the 2020 election, which you had to do again and again and again. Recounts of the vote, recertification, defending this in court. What has that fight been like for you? And are you confident that the vote is secure even this fall in 2022?
Well, yes, I am. I think the first unequivocal thing to know is that we had a successful election in Michigan in 2020. More people voted than ever before. It was safe, it was secure. People were able to vote, and things went smoothly, and it withstood enormous scrutiny because the evidence unequivocally showed that our procedures were secure and the results were an accurate reflection of the will of the people. Nevertheless, we have been in this battle of truth versus lies that has continued really even prior to Election Day, but continues escalating and will also be a clear choice that voters have this fall. Will they support candidates who've told them the truth, even if they didn't like or agree with the truth, versus those who've lied to them to further political goals and partisan agendas? I think the truth wins every time, but it's going to be up to the voters this fall to decide.
Despite the fact that you put out this evidence again and again and again, it's been upheld in court by the way, sometimes Trump-appointed judges in Michigan and across the country. You have candidates running right now on the lie that the 2020 election was rigged, that it was somehow stolen, some doing better than others, but it persists. So what does that mean for you? What does that mean for people who are sort of this bastion between those lies and what could come on the other side of them?
Well, I always remember the truth, the law, the Constitution, it's on our side. And the vast majority of people in the state of Michigan and throughout this country know and recognize the realities, the truth of our elections. And they have been affirmed not just by a Republican state senator on on the head of the Oversight Committee, but also hundreds of audits all across our state. So the truth is there if people want to see it. And I hope there will be more Republicans like Congresswoman Cheney and others who speak and reiterate that truth, because that's what we really need to move forward from a moment like this. And I'll continue talking and listening to people all throughout our state, answering their questions about the election with the facts and the evidence that we have. That work continues, and that's what a moment like this requires. But I'm also calling on my Republican colleagues across the country, Republican secretaries of state, to join us in starting to be truth tellers, spreading those facts versus the lies that many candidates are going to be touting over the next 6 months. If we keep doing that, we can break through. But it is a very perilous moment for our democracy because of the ways that this big lie is not just escalating, but really taking root in a lot of communities.
So you're the Secretary of State of Michigan. You're in charge of the ballot. People are going to point to you, is the vote fixed? Is the vote honest? Stuff like that. This is a crazy, dangerous time in American history that all of us are going through. You more specifically than most because you're a public person.
Yeah.
Do you feel it's dangerous to you personally?
Oh, yes. Yeah, undoubtedly. I started my career investigating white supremacist organizations undercover in the Deep South. So I have a baseline of courage and a determination to stand up, to expose the truth and ensure what's right prevails. And I've always been connected deeply to the work of the folks who stood at the foot of the Edmund Pettus Bridge in 1965 to stand down violence, to simply ensure everyone has the right to vote. So when there were people gathered outside my home calling on me to not certify the election with the threat of violence if I did, I connect back to that moment in our history and the work that's always been required for those of us who want to stand on the front lines protecting democracy, and know that we can move forward, but only if all citizens stand up and serve as truth tellers and bravely and courageously push forward, still vote, stay engaged, because ultimately the goal
But it's dangerous.
It is, yes. But defending democracy throughout the history of our country has always met up against certain threats, and particularly in a moment like this where violent threats, hateful rhetoric, divisiveness abounds in our political arena. It is indeed what we have to sign up to encounter if we're going to defend the basis of who we are as Americans and make sure our democracy emerges out of this moment, I hope, stronger than ever.
And there's a whole new, Madam Secretary, issue being thrown into this fire that is burning in our politics, and that is the issue now over abortion. Michigan's one of 9 states that has pre-Roe laws that criminalize abortion, and those laws are on the books. If Roe gets overturned, abortion will immediately become a criminal offense in the state of Michigan. It's not even a trigger law. It's already on the books. So if and when Roe is overturned, what kind of state is Michigan going to be for women?
First and foremost, it will continue to be a state led by women who stand up for every citizen's right to choose. And will continue, and I know our governor in particular will use every lever at her disposal to make sure that right is protected and to cut through a lot of chaos and confusion around what is available and what's not. Our state attorney general, Dana Nessel, has also been very clear about her position on this and her desire to continue protecting women's right to choose. And so we may see a decision from our state Supreme Court sooner rather than later on this. I think that's some of the clarity we're hoping for. And then again, this fall, voters will have potentially an opportunity to amend our state constitution to clearly, unequivocally put that right in the law and support candidates who will support legislation that will protect those rights. So there's actions that can and will be taken. And I'm proud to live in a state led by women who believe in women's right to autonomy over their own bodies. And citizens of Michigan can know that we're going to be there fighting alongside them every step of the way to make sure all of their fundamental rights and freedoms are protected.
Mika, our viewers can see how impressive Secretary Benson is, but we've left out the most impressive detail. We just confirmed in the commercial break that Secretary Benson ran the Boston Marathon and finished it while 8 months pregnant.
No,
Need I say more?
love it.
One foot in front of the other. Just determination and endurance.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, literally.
You just gave me a shred of hope. That's really good. Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn, that's good. That's good. We'll talk about that. Thank you very much for being on the show this morning. We appreciate it.